the fusion of Goten and Trunks with the Potara. I actually really wish we could see this, because we've seen Goku and Vegeta fuse with both methods, whether it be the dance or the earrings, and we've only ever seen Gotenks. So I'd really want to see the fusion of Goten and Trunks with Potara, even if it only happens in Dragon Ball Heroes. But one thing I can't quite pinpoint is, what the hell would their fusion name be with Potara? Because instead of Goten being the first half of the name and Trunks being the last part, in the case of Gotenks, we'd have to have it the other way around, with Trunks in the beginning and Goten at the end. But none of the names I can come up with sound good. They either don't flow off the tongue properly, or just straight up sound stupid. Trunten. Trunken. Forget it, I'll let you guys decide what his fusion name would be. Let's get on to the fusion itself, though. I personally believe that the fusion of Goten and Trunks with the Potara could use Super Saiyan 3 longer than they could with the fusion dance. Simply because, as we've seen in the case of Vegito, it took the immense strain of power of Super Saiyan Blue just to reduce the Potara down to only a couple minutes. And it wasn't like the fusion ran out of energy, it's just that they overloaded the Potara. So I don't think the Potara would be that bothered by Super Saiyan 3. Now, I don't think they'll be able to use the full hour while using Super Saiyan 3. I believe they'd be able to last well over half an hour while using it, whereas if they use Super Saiyan 3 with the fusion dance, they only got a couple minutes of using it. Now this right here makes a lot of sense and is a perfect combination. Momo with the Green Lantern Ring. Firstly, the Green Lantern Ring would allow her to fly at faster than light speeds, even in the vacuum of space, so moving around would be so much easier for her. And when it comes to creating things with her light constructs, she'd probably be better at making complex constructs than any Green Lantern ever. Because Momo's quirk, the only way she's able to use it as well as she can is because she has to understand the complex molecular structure of any object she wants to create. So you put that same level of intelligence with the massive pool of energy that you can have within a lantern ring, and she'd have so much freedom to be able to use the lantern ring's constructs than even her quirk can allow her to. Mostly because, unlike her quirk, the ring won't burn through her fat lipids. So her constantly making things isn't going to make her pass out from exhaustion. As long as the ring has energy, she can keep making shit. And even if her ring does run out of power, she'd still have her quirk as a last resort. Plus, honestly, I think she looks really cool as a Green Lantern. Damn, that looks awesome. The fusion of Goku and Ichigo. This fusion would be both a master of martial arts and a master swordsman. So even if you were able to disarm them, they'd still be just as capable of fighting back. The only thing I really don't like is what they did with the styling of the base form hair. They could have just done a half and half thing like Gotenks, not that splotch of orange in Goku's black hair. Besides that, I like everything else about this fusion. Especially since when they put on the Hollow Mask, it also lets them turn Super Saiyan. Because as we see a lot, when Ichigo uses the Hollow Mask, he tends to get a lot more aggressive. And rage and aggression is associated with the Super Saiyan forms. Plus it will be a double power amplification, obviously the multiplier of Super Saiyan, but also the boost of the Hollow Mask. The most terrifying combination of the forms would be Vasto Lorde with Super Saiyan 3. And his most dangerous combination, in my opinion, would be Ultra Instinct merged with the Mugetsu form, the one with the long black hair. Or since it's combined with Ultra Instinct, it would be long silver hair. Also, one thing I'm really wondering is, what would it be like to use a sword with Ultra Instinct? This makes sense. Deku with the Green Lantern Ring. With how much willpower Deku has in himself, especially knowing how much trust All Might has in him, his Green Lantern Ring would be very powerful. Now, manga Deku, on the other hand, you could argue him having 3 different lantern rings. He could still have a Green Lantern Ring, since what he's doing would require a hell of a lot of willpower. You could also argue him having a Yellow Lantern Ring, because he's afraid that if he works with anyone else, they could get hurt or even die. As well as a lot of villains being afraid of his presence alone. You've likely seen edits of manga Deku on TikTok, that motherfucker looks terrifying right now. And another ring he could have would be a Red Lantern Ring, due to his hatred and anger towards the League of Villains, especially All for One and Shigaraki. But whichever one he does have, it would make him so powerful he wouldn't even need to use One for All or its quirks. And with how intelligent Deku is, he'd easily come up with some incredibly creative constructs that not many other Green Lanterns could even think of. And if he was working in the same place as Blue Lantern All Might, both of them would become stronger. Because surprisingly, a lot of people don't know this, if a Green Lantern and Blue Lantern are near each other, both of them get a power boost. This is a pretty interesting fusion. The fusion of Mikasa and Sakura. Firstly, with Sakura's speed and strength, even if they didn't have the maneuver gear, she'd still be able to move far faster than the maneuver gear ever has. Secondly, the strength of her swings with the swords, back behind Sakura's strength, would be incredibly powerful, especially if she infuses chakra into the blades. The durability of the blades would become off the charts, and would be capable of even cutting through the Armored Titan, or possibly even the Warhammer Titan's armor. Also, if they were to be injured by a Titan, whether it be getting a limb chomped off, or broken bones by getting smacked by a Titan, the 100 healings could heal them in seconds. Also, again, with Sakura's super strength, she could easily break herself free from a Titan's grip, or if a Titan was about to chomp down on her, could easily pry the jaws back open to keep herself from being Titan food. Also, you likely already noticed, they're using the Potara earrings from Dragon Ball. So it's not just their strength being added together, it's actually having all their attributes multiplied. So I know it might not seem like much, but it would take Sakura's strength and multiply it by Mikasa's strength. The fusion of Rock Lee and Krillin. Now this fusion would be a lot more powerful than people would think it is. For two reasons. Rock Lee's drive to train intensely 24/7, and the potential of Dragon Ball humans. With Rock Lee's intense drive to train non-stop, and the potential of Krillin, this fusion's base form alone would be exponentially stronger than almost every Z-Fighter except for the Saiyans. Not only that, they'll still be able to use the 8 gates. This fusion using the 7th gate would likely be comparable to Goku in some of his regular Super Saiyan forms. But the moment he uses any of the God forms, yeah, this fusion loses, even if they do use the 8th gate. But with that much extra speed and strength, Krillin's other abilities would make this fusion much more dangerous. Their maximum speed and power would be comparable to Goku or Vegeta in one of their regular Super Saiyan forms, and if you have the Destructo Disc with that much speed as well as the Solar Flare, this fusion wouldn't only be powerful, it would be quite deadly too. Okay, this fusion looks awesome. The fusion of Tapeon and Future Trunks. Firstly, for the obvious part, this fusion's base power would be equal to Future Trunks' base times Tapeon's power. And Tapeon's maximum is at least comparable to Super Saiyan Kid Trunks, possibly stronger than that. Not only that, this fusion would be able to then stack the Super Saiyan form, Super Saiyan 1, 2, and even Super Saiyan Rage. And instead of one Sword of Hope, they'd be dual-wielding Swords of Hope. For those that don't know what that means, that's basically a Spirit Bomb sword. If this fusion were to fight the androids or Goku Black, it would easily win. And for Goku Black, I'm specifically specifying the strength of Goku Black before they went back in time to talk to the main timeline. Basically before Goku Black accessed Super Saiyan Rose. Even if he did get Rose, I do believe this fusion would still be able to put up a pretty decent fight against it. Just going on my morning walk. Thought I'd make a video while I'm outside this time. The fusion of Frieza and Cooler. Firstly, the canon version. First, for the canon version, this fusion would have a base power equal to Frieza's final form fused with Cooler's 4th form. But they would easily be able to stack Cooler's 5th form with the golden form, stacking the two multipliers together, which would make this fusion an absolute menace. Not only that, but the fusion would be just as evil as Cooler and Frieza together, as well as it being significantly amplified. Yeah, power isn't the only thing amplified with fusion. But if I use Dragon Ball Heroes Cooler, this is where the fusion gets absolutely terrifying. Firstly, they would have the abilities of Cooler's metal form having insane regeneration, as well as growing in power, adapting, and evolving the longer they fight an opponent. And regular Metal Cooler can already compete with Super Saiyan 3 Cumber, whose base form is stronger than Kaioken Blue Vegito. And then he could stack the golden form on top of that. But since it's a fusion of Cooler and Frieza, they'd already have the golden form anyways. So if we use that version of Cooler, it would take Metal Cooler's power and multiply it by 4th form Frieza's power. And then they'd be easily capable of stacking the golden form on top of that. So yeah, it doesn't really matter which version of Cooler or Frieza we use, because no matter what, they would be so damn powerful It would take nothing short of Vegeta or Gogeta in their god forms just to be able to compete with this. And even then, they'll probably have to either break out Blue Evolution or Blue Kaioken, or maybe even one of the Ultra Instinct states. Yep, your eyes aren't deceiving you. This isn't fan art, this is an actual character. Say hello to Super Soldier, one of the many characters that came from the Amalgam Universe. What is the Amalgam Universe, you ask? It's where Marvel and DC work together, where they each take one character from their respective comics and just merge them into a singular entity. And technically, it's not a fusion in the sense of how Dragon Ball does fusions, but an actual fusion of the entirety of the character. And I think it's quite obvious who these two characters are that are fused, but I'll just say it anyways. Captain America fused with Superman. But the actual funny thing here is, depending on how you look at it, this is either one of the strongest versions of Captain America, or one of the weakest versions of Superman. Because yes, this character is bulletproof, but he could take serious damage from explosives if they hit him directly, which is why he obviously has the shield. But all his physical capabilities are significantly amplified thanks to it being part Superman. And with the combination of all the physical enhanced abilities that come from him being partially Superman, he has enhanced speed, strength, enhanced durability, superhuman senses, and is just as good of a fighter as Captain America. So yeah, this character is pretty cool. Now, the video I'm going to post right after this is actually going to go over what I think is the most powerful version of Captain America. So feel free to go to my page and check it out. Steve Rogers as a Sorcerer Supreme, or better known as Soldier Supreme. Firstly, it would be incredibly difficult to fight this guy, because if you fight him mid to long range, he could use magic. But if you ever got too close, he still has the physical characteristics of a super soldier, and definitely has a couple spells that can enhance his physical strength even further, so close combat is definitely a no-go. So unless you are leagues stronger than him, or have magic that far outclasses him, which is very unlikely, you would be a lot better off just not fighting this combination at all. He seems to have all of his bases covered. He can fight you at long to mid-range with magic, or close range with hand-to-hand combat. So there's no way of fighting him where you're going to have any sort of advantage. And as I mentioned in my last video about the Superman and Captain America combination, I personally believe that this is one of the strongest, if not the strongest version of Captain America. If I'm wrong, feel free to correct me, but to my knowledge, this is the strongest version of Captain America. I will gladly cover Darkclaw. Darkclaw is another character from the Amalgam Universe comics. The Amalgam Universe is where Marvel and DC work together, where they take one character from each of their properties and merge it into a singular being. And if you haven't already realized what these two characters are, this is Wolverine and Batman. And yes, it is far more terrifying than you could possibly imagine. Batman's shown that he can fight for days on end with no rest, and you give him a healing factor like Wolverine's and he'd be able to do exactly what he does normally, except for multiple weeks, if not multiple months straight. He would have Batman's level of skill at martial arts, Wolverine's adamantium skeleton, as well as his adamantium claws, which allow him to cut through basically anything. Also, trying to even fight this character would be near impossible, because more than likely, he'd be able to beat you with sheer skill. He wouldn't even need to use his claws in most situations because he's just as skilled of a fighter as Batman, and easily 10 times more ruthless because of the animalistic nature of Wolverine. But even if you were somehow more skilled than him, it would be near impossible to actually put him down for good. With the combination of this character's skill, his healing factor, and his relentless mentality, beating him is practically impossible. And finally, you have the same level of skill as Batman, back behind the swing of adamantium claws that can cut through almost any obstacle or person in his way. If you want me to cover more characters from the Amalgam Universe, just comment down a name and I'll make a video on them. Ah yes, Speed Demon, one of my favorite of the Amalgam fusions. As you probably already realized from the picture, this is a fusion of the Flash and Ghost Rider. And yes, it is just as powerful as you think. He is just as fast as Barry Allen, and just as deadly of a Ghost Rider as Johnny Blaze. And ironically, the name of this character when it's not actively being Speed Demon is Blaze Allen. So basically, this character has the ability to do anything Johnny Blaze or Barry Allen can do. Meaning, if he actually wanted to, he could speed blitz and perform the penance stare on thousands of people in a blink of an eye. Speed Demon is definitely one of the most overpowered combinations in all of Amalgam Comics. Not only that, but trying to beat this character is near impossible. Firstly, since he is a Ghost Rider, the only kind of weapons that can affect him are holy weapons. And even if you do manage to kill him, since he's connected to the Speed Force, he could simply come back. Because Barry Allen has been able to outrun death. I honestly don't know why I'm talking about attempting to defeat this guy. Because even if you did have a holy weapon to try to land an attack on him, how exactly do you plan on beating him when he's moving billions of times the speed of light? Speed Demon is easily one of the most deadly speedsters of all time. He might not be the strongest speedster like Mobius Chair Wally West, but he is easily in the top 10, arguably top 5. Another one of my absolute favorite characters from Amalgam Comics. The fusion of Wonder Woman and Storm. Or to be more simple, they like to go by the title, Amazon. This fusion is the true epitome of a god. This fusion possesses the godlike level of strength of Wonder Woman, as well as her insanely high combat skill, as well as possessing Wonder Woman's sword that can cut between atoms, and her signature lasso of truth. But that is not all. They also have full control over all weather, meaning trying to fight them would be extremely difficult, because they are incredibly skilled with close quarters combat, with Wonder Woman's strength and skill, as well as her being able to do whatever she wants with the weather to get whatever kind of advantage she wants in a fight. And if anyone ever was too strong for them to deal with normally, they could simply remove the gauntlets, and in doing so their strength and speed would be amplified hundreds of times. And if I had to say who's my favorite out of all the Amalgam fusions, Amazon would definitely be my favorite. But I am quite biased because I really like Storm. I will gladly cover Hal Stark, also known as the Iron Lantern. I know this is pretty obvious, but this is obviously a fusion of Hal Jordan and Tony Stark, an Iron Man Green Lantern. And my absolute favorite part about this fusion is the lantern battery that a Green Lantern carries around was implemented to become the core of this Iron Man suit, meaning that his suit is entirely powered on willpower. And seeing how they have the incredible mind of Tony Stark, their light constructs are insanely complex. And not only do they have all the standard powers of a standard Iron Man suit, but they can significantly amplify them using the powers of the lantern battery. And seeing how this suit is powered off of the lantern battery instead of just a singular lantern ring, Iron Lantern is significantly stronger than any average Green Lantern. Not only that, but he can imbue his other suits with the lantern battery as well, making them more powerful than they already are. Plus, Iron Lantern is incredibly versatile. With the creativity of a lantern ring and the near endless energy of a lantern battery, on top of the insane technical prowess of any Iron Man suit, there is near limitless ways in which he'd be able to actually use his powers. This right here is another one of my favorite fusions from Amalgam Universe, Strange Fate. Obviously, you can assume by the name that this is a combination of Doctor Strange and Dr. Fate. But, unlike the other fusions, this goes one step further. The person under all that isn't just a mixture of the human sides of both of these powerful magic users, it's actually Charles Xavier, Professor X. So on top of the near limitless magical abilities that this fusion would have, due to him having all the powers of Doctor Strange and all the powers of Dr. Fate, he also has all the psychic abilities of Charles Xavier. Not only that, this character is as smart as Doctor Strange, Dr. Fate, and Charles Xavier put together. To be completely honest, out of every fusion in Amalgam Comics, Strange Fate is easily one of the strongest. With all the powers of those three characters put into a singular body, I truly have no idea just how powerful this fusion would be at 100%. Because Charles Xavier, Doctor Strange, and Dr. Fate are all insanely powerful on their own. Having one character with the combined power of all three of these god-tier characters would result in a nearly unstoppable force. Now, this is a character I never really expected anyone to bring up, because one of the characters involved is not really that well known, unless you are a really hardcore comic fan. This is a combination of Spectre and the character Nightmare. Nightmare really isn't that memorable in comparison to the other villains of Doctor Strange and Ghost Rider. But just because he's not one of the most popular villains doesn't mean he isn't one of the strongest. Nightmare is nigh omnipotent, omniscient, and omnipresent, and his powers entirely derived from fear and nightmares of any living being. Now, Spectre, on the other hand, is a lot more well-known. Even if you haven't read that many comics, you've likely heard the name Spectre before, and I'm almost certain any hardcore comic fan knows exactly who Spectre is. Spectre is also just as much of a powerhouse as Nightmare is. He is also nigh omnipotent, nigh omniscient. He has the ability to warp and alter reality to his whim. He's an eternal being, and also has the ability to alter energy and matter at will. So as you can guess, merging these two characters into a singular entity results in an insanely powerful being. And he's one of the main villains of Speed Demon, the Ghost Rider and Flash combination that also exists in Amalgam Comics. But despite how powerful Speed Demon is, I still find it kinda hard to believe that he can even compare to Night Spectre. Nightmare and Spectre together are already insanely powerful by themselves. Merging them together, who knows the limits of this combination? Dr. Doomsday, also known as the fusion of Dr. Doom and Doomsday. Another character from the Amalgam Comics universe. Now, I both love and hate this character. Love it because I just love the design and love the concept of a character like this. But I also hate that it exists. Because how in the fuck are you supposed to combat against this thing? Firstly, Doctor Doom is second only to Doctor Strange when it comes to mystic arts, aka magic. So much so that if Doctor Strange didn't exist, then Doctor Doom would have become the Sorcerer Supreme. Not only that, he's highly intelligent. And Doomsday, oh god, where do I get started? This bioengineered freak of nature is nearly impossible to permanently kill. Because even if you do kill him, he'll come back immune to what killed him in the past. Not only that, but he's physically strong enough to actually make Superman bleed, and was the first person in comics history to actually kill Superman. And this fusion is just more deadly than either of these two could be on their own. Because despite how powerful Doomsday is, he's a brainless idiot. And despite that, he's still an absolute terror. Now you give him access to the mystical powers of Doctor Doom, as well as his intelligence. I don't see any way of actually putting this guy down.